Hello, this is Mr. Psychonaut, and we have our first video on a compound. Basically, these videos are going to be a simple, quick explanation of the compound, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience and some of the experiences that I've heard from the community about um, their subjective experiences as well. Um, so real quick before we get started, oh, we got a disclaimer here. This video is made for informational and educational purposes only. I do not recommend taking any drugs ever. The ultimate form of harm reduction is not doing drugs at all. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. 4-HOMET. Um, Most commonly, it would be referred to as 4-HOMET or 4-HOMET. Mostly 4-HOMET. Probably the second most common thing I hear it referred to as is Metocin, and I've never heard anyone refer to it as methylcybin or color, but those are apparently also occasionally what it is named as. So 4-HMT was first synthesized by the late great Alexander Shulgin, and he documented it in TCAL, so you can look into the TCAL report for this if you want to get more detailed information. It's been appearing on the research chemical market online. It surfaced in the 2000s, late 2000s, alongside the other tryptamine psilocybin analogs, 4-ACO-DMT, and 4-HMIPT. Subjective effects can include. We'll get into the subjective effects later, actually. So let's go more into how 4-HOMET is a tryptamine. 4-HOMET is in the chemical class tryptamines. Tryptamines are going to be UFO alvarius toad. And you, I might do an episode on that at some point. That's not something that I have personal experience with. So if I do talk about it, I won't have as much to, have my own input on. Um, and dimethyltryptamine, which is usually referred to as DMT, is one of the most abundant psychedelics in this planet that's naturally existing. It's in so many different plants, and it is like everywhere in nature, essentially. And then, yeah, serotonin and melatonin, which are endogenous chemicals here. We got a neurotransmitter and a hormone. This one makes you sleepy, and this one is a vital neurotransmitter in cognition and emotions, and it does so many things. And then yes, of course, psilocybin and psilocin, which is what psilocybin gets broken down into. And yes, so 4-HMT is actually a direct derivative of psilocin. Not psilocybin. It's not a prodrug. Psilocin, the chemical name for it is 4-HO-DMT, and we're working with the the um 4-HO MET. Oh, oops, sorry. Okay, so binding affinity. Primary effects of 4-HMET are mediated, as with most serotonergic psychedelics, through the 5-HT2A receptor. And as you can see, it also has other binding affinities, which you can take a look at if you understand all of this. Um, Now, the subjective effects. For me personally, I have done doses of 4-HMET pretty much everywhere from 1 milligram all the way to 25 milligrams being the highest dose that I've taken personally. For me, my sweet spot for a recreational dose where I actually want to trip and have visuals and do a full-blown experience is going to be anywhere from 15 to 25. 25 if I would prefer to have a trip sitter then and someone who's not going to bother me or, affect my experience at all. But if I'm alone and I just want to, um, you know, just enjoy myself more and not really have to worry about having such a introspective and more intense experience, then I would go with more 15 milligrams. On 15 milligrams, the headspace is it's like it is so clear. It is unbelievable. You almost wouldn't even think you're on a psychedelic if you didn't have the visuals and the body high. It's pretty incredible, honestly. It is one of personally my favorite psychedelics and substances in general. It is one of my favorite. Um, so yeah, I chose this image because I thought this image did a pretty good job of showing what a higher dose would look like. I think the peak on a 25 milligram dose, this is pretty close to what you might experience. Maybe you would have to go a little bit higher. I'm not sure I ever saw anything this intense, but I think the nature of the swirls and the color change is very accurate for what you might see on um, tryptamines, such as 4-HMT and psilocybin. Of course, this is all subjective. Everyone's neurochemistry is different. Every trip itself is different for each one that you go into. Um, and for me, this is just accurate to me. This is what I experience. This is similar to what I experience. Now, these are very accurate to what I experience. This is pretty much exactly what I experience, which is the flowing effect. And yeah, I've seen this. This is a perfect example. Is I would be able to look at wood grain and I would see the wood grain flowing. The most fascinating thing about the visuals of tryptamines is, um, especially on the doses that I've taken, is it's not like a filter over your eyes, which would make it seem like fake the visuals. It only appears on certain objects. So I would be able to look at a flat wall, and that wall would look perfectly normal, and I could immerse myself in looking at that blank wall that has no texture, and I would just be like, okay, nothing's happening. But then I look over at the wood grain, and the wood grain would be flowing. And I always found that very, very fascinating about it. Is how the visuals only tend to appear on very textured objects, and I find that very interesting. And it's only certain types of textures it'll appear on too. Very interesting. Tolerance and addiction potential. So 4-HMT uh is a serotonergic psychedelic, meaning it's not as with most serotonergic psychedelics, 5-HT2A agonists, they are not habit forming, and the desire to use can actually decrease with use. Um, because you may experience, I mean, first of all, the tolerance builds immediately, as it says right here with tolerance. The effects, the tolerance builds immediately after ingestion, and it takes about 3 days for the tolerance to be reduced by half and 7 days to fully reset. And the tolerance is kind of accumulative, so if you're repeatedly do a dose every 7 days, you'll eventually kind of start to build a sort of perma-tolerance almost. Which you might actually be just building a tolerance, or you might just be starting to get your ego is developing a way to understand how to control the effects of a psychedelic trip. And if you understand that, then you won't um, trip as hard, and it won't be as meaningful the experience. So, personally, um, everyone is going to be different. Of course, you shouldn't take it at all. But for me, what worked for me is going to be um, for a recreational, uh, you know, larger dose experience. I would do it anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks apart. To keep any tolerance from developing, and to keep the experiences fresh. And I respond very well to psychedelics in that I always get a very strong antidepressant afterglow effect that is very beneficial for me. Um, and I've also been experimenting with microdosing since I haven't had time to do full blown trips recently. And anywhere from 1 to 2 milligrams as needed, but not every day. I usually do it maybe at most 3 times a week with days in between where I don't take anything. And that has also been very beneficial for me. The microdosing is truly incredible. The visual acuity enhancement that you get from even a microdose can enhance your gaming skills, and it makes it easier to focus on reading and stuff. It is very incredible what this stuff does for you, and the emotional change it does. It pretty much turns me into who I want to be as a person. I wish I felt like I do on a microdose all the time. It is a very incredible substance, truly. Legality. So, as you can see here, for HMT, just like many of the serotonergic psychedelics are truly wrongfully illegal. Um, Here we go. In Australia, it's illegal to possess. Canada, it's unscheduled. Good on you, Canada. They have very progressive laws around this kind of stuff in Canada, and I love Canada for that. Germany, it's controlled. Japan, it's controlled. Poland, illegal. Sweden, Schedule One. Um, Sweden, Schedule One. Switzerland, it's controlled. United Kingdom, it's Class A. And United States, it's unscheduled. So good on you, in the United States, for not making that illegal yet. United States is still making all these a bunch of these research chemicals illegal wrongfully to this day, and they really should not be doing this anymore. Um, Recently we had a bunch of novel psychedelics, um, chemicals, research chemicals. They tried to legalize. You know. Anyways, this is the video here, guys. I want you to tell me in the comments though, what you think I should do for my next video. I mean, I think I want to do a video on more substances that I've had experience with personally, so I could talk more about my subjective experiences. Because I think bringing my experience to the table is going to be what sets it apart from the other channels that you have access to with that go more into depth. And I do want to talk about 4-HMT again because it is personally my favorite um uh psychedelic, and it is my favorite substance that I've ever tried. And it was also my first research chemical, so this one really holds a special place in my heart. But I wanted to, want you guys to go ahead and tell me, um, I either want to do a video on dextromethorphan next, which is completely legal, dissociative morphinian compound, very interesting, and I would love to talk about that one. Or, I do a video that's more general, which isn't about a specific compound, but I also want to do a video about drug policy reform, and talking about the things you can do to help push along drug policy reform, and talk about all of the injustices that is currently happening and has happened in the past with drug policy and the DEA, mostly in the United States. So yeah, let me guys know. Um, should I do a video about DXM or do a video about drug policy reform? Or if you guys want to suggest something else for me, please let me know. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.